Welcome to Talent Matters, the podcast where talent, skills, and grit take centre stage. I'm your host, Donal O'Donoghue, and this is episode 4, and I'm delighted to be joined by former Ireland, Leinster Harlequins, and a little bit of Munster rugby international, Mike Ross. Hey, Mike, welcome.
Thanks, Donal. Good to be on.
Good to see you. So, the whole idea with this podcast is that we're looking at the combination of talent, skill acquisition, and then just determination and grit. So I suppose to kick off, we'd like to kick off with the type of kid you were growing up. What were your early talents?
Early talents. So I grew up on a dairy farm down in North Cork, a little village called Ballyhooly. So I guess my early talents were picking up heavy things and putting them down again because my father had me working on the farm from a young age, you know. So we would have had about 80 or 90 milking cows at that time. And so there's always something to do around the farm to keep them busy.
And that definitely instills work ethic, doesn't it? And I suppose a certain discipline, early mornings and...
Yeah, because the cows don't take a day off, you know, so you kind of have to be at it every day and they require constant care and maintenance. Like a farmer is probably, you know, it's about 50 professions rolled into one. You have to be a vet, mechanic, you know, animal husbandry, everything, you know, so it's an intense lifestyle, and there's probably a reason I didn't take it on after I finished college.
And what were you like in school?
I was pretty good, you know. I was a good student. Probably relied a bit too much on natural ability rather than huge amounts of study. You know, certainly my college days. You know, but I did well enough in Leaving Cert. Probably the highlights. I got like an A1 in English and B1 biology and things like that. And then when I went to UCC, I did biotechnology. That's what I did. Plant microbial biotechnology, to give it the full phrase. But in first year, you kind of do a generic kind of intro to biology and science course, and then you kind of streamline after that.
And in terms of sport, growing up, what was your involvement in sport as a kid?
Well, look, I grew up with, you know, I had 3 brothers, so I always had a lot of competition on the farm, whether it's, you know, it depends what was on TV at the time, right? So if Wimbledon is on, we're all playing tennis out in the yard, and you know, if the, you know, the All Ireland final is on, we're playing football, or you know, if the Ireland, I remember Ireland getting Italia 90, you know, it's one of a core memory there, you know. So I remember, you know, playing for hours outside. But my dad took me into Fermoy Rugby Club when I was around 11, and never looked back after that, you know, because probably wasn't the most mobile kid. Growing up, I had like a stone for every year, you know, so rugby was a natural fit for me.
Yeah. Were you big for your age?
Yeah, I was always big for my age.
Very good. And then in terms of when there appeared to be kind of a possibility of rugby being more than just a pastime, when did that kind of dawn on you?
So I guess I went from Fermoy Rugby Club, played up there from under 11s to like under 18s, played a few games with the first team when I was 18, and then I started in UCC and went along to UCC. I got stuck in minor B, then following week played minor A, then into the junior team and then to the senior team. So it happened about a space of 6 weeks. So I started twigging to me, well, might be actually okay at this, you know. So because I went to St. Coleman's College in Fermoy, which is not a rugby school, to put it mildly. At the time, they would have won the hurling All Ireland twice while I was there. You know, I think the entire school from junior cert up got a bit loose in the local nightclub. But I went to UCC, and that was kind of like the real kind of commencement of my rugby education. I had some great coaches in there. I liked Brian Hyland, who you might know.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So Brian was one of my first coaches, a guy called Peter Melia, who I actually met him a couple months ago. He's coaching Christians now. And my first year there, we won the Students' European Cup. And it was funny because it was the Ulster 20th anniversary of them winning the Heineken Cup, I believe. And we were presented on the pitch at halftime. Or it was 25th anniversary. So we were presented on the pitch at halftime after winning that morning. So yeah, that was good. And I played there for about 4 years. Went to Cork Con after 4 years, and I was kind of in and out of the Munster training setup, because when the internationals go away for Six Nations, they need bodies to fill the training. So I went along there, and I was doing well enough in the scrummaging sessions. Obviously it was a hell of a step up, but ultimately I think I was 26, and I'd been training with Munster quite a bit, and eventually had a chat with Declan Kidney. Declan said that, look, we don't have a contract for you. So I went away and got an agent, a guy called, and he happened to be Dean Richards' agent, a guy called Justin Page.
Mm-hmm.
And it just so happened that Harlequins who Dino was coaching at the time, had just got promoted again after being relegated the previous year to Premiership. So they needed cheap players. I was a cheap player, so Dino took a punt on me, after a 3 months, gave me a 3 month training contract, and went on from there.
Yeah, and you represented Harlequins like 84 times or something.
Yeah, around the 80 mark. Yeah, so it really was the making of me, because I was playing every week. So it was kind of a quick hurry up in the rugby education. My first professional pre-season, I probably dropped around 13, 14 kilos. It was a bit of a shock to the system, but it really was the making of me as a player.
What was the culture at the club like at the time? Obviously, there's a bit of change going on if they're just, I suppose, in a bit of a rebuild pattern.
Yeah, it was great. Really, really enjoyed it. I made some, lifelong friends there. I still guys to be in touch with today. I only played there for 3 years, but I guess the difference would be between, say, Premiership clubs and the provinces, right? So a lot of the players, the provinces grew up here, so they already have their friend networks established and built, and they have moved away from them. Whereas you go over to the Premiership, and the club are your friends, because you don't have the same network that you would otherwise. So that kind of creates a lot of it's very good for team building, creates a lot of tightness. So really enjoyed my time over there.
And then the opportunity came up to come back home with Leinster.
Yeah, so I think this was I think around February 2009. I was in negotiations with Harlequins for renewal, because I wanted to stay there. I was playing every week. I got picked in the Premiership Team of the Year like the season before, but I knew the World Cup was coming up, and it was very difficult to get picked for Ireland if you weren't based in Ireland, because there was always a week before the official release window, and the Premiership clubs are obliged to release you that the proper training camp would happen. So you couldn't go to that, so you miss out on it. And I remember at the time, Checa came along to me and made this pitch, and I was like going, well, okay, but you've got two good tightheads already. I mean, they'd Stan Wright and CJ Vanderlyn at the time. So I was like, where's the room for me in this? And but I knew that if I wanted to play for Ireland, I had to move at some point. Leinster wouldn't have been my home province, but they were going well. They had an exciting team, like Brian O'Driscoll, Gordon Darcy, Shane Horgan, like a smorgasbord of talent there. So it was obviously, and so it happened. So I signed for him, and then a couple months later, Bloodgate happened. That infamous game where So I played in that for Harlequins against Leinster. So.
Okay.
Of course I wanted to win, because it's no good to me if Leinster won it at that time. But yeah.
So when you came back, what was the difference when you think about leadership and you compare coaching styles from Harlequins to Leinster? What was that adjustment like?
It's different, I mean, so if you take Dean Richards, for example, very old school kind of guy, right? English legend, played I don't know how many times for England as a, take no prisoners number 8, and he was very good for what that team. The team needed a hard character in charge, and then I went from him to Checa, who was also a tough character in his own right, probably a bit more vocal and more emotional than Richards would have been. But again, exactly what Leinster needed at the time. And then after Checa came Schmidt, a bit less vocal, but no less hard-assed. So it's I think if you're running or you're leading a professional rugby team, you have to. It's a tough job. You have a lot of very motivated, very opinionated, prickly characters, very a lot of alpha males, so you have to be kind of be able to deal with that and make bend them to your will. So it does require often a tough character.
Which environment did you prefer, the Schmidt environment or the?
Yeah, probably Schmidt. Thing I liked about with the Schmidt environment that I was never left to any doubt as to what was required. Whereas some of the other coach environments are a bit more woolly in their requirements, where like I probably thrive on clear direction and knowing exactly what I need to do.
So what did Joe want from you?
Joe, like, yeah, I've probably told the story a couple of times before, but start of the season, Joe calls us one by one to his office and he goes, "All right, so what are you going to bring to the team?" And I've been, I'll scrummage for you. Joe goes, "Great. What else?" So I'll hit rocks. Great. What else? Lifting the line out. Okay, what else? So, he was very demanding about what he wanted his players to do. But on the flip side of that, if you did what he wanted and you met his KPIs, shall we say, then he'd no problem picking you.
And talk to us about getting into the Ireland setup then initially.
Yeah, it was difficult enough at start because obviously John Hayes, Munster legend, Irish legend, over a century, one of the first players to hit a century of caps. And then behind him, Tony Buckley, who had physical gifts I couldn't match. The guy who was like one of the biggest humans you'll ever meet in your life, and he was so strong and powerful. But put together a good run of form for Leinster, and 2010, 2011. Probably what got me into the Irish squad in Six Nations 2011 were those back-to-back Claremont games that we used to have in the Heineken Cup, where I played well, and I made my first six. So I'd been capped in 2009. Went on a summer tour to Canada and the United States, but that was without most of the Leinster players because they are still They're still deep into the Heineken Cup, so they're still probably celebrating after winning it. That's the first time they won it. But I had to wait 2 years to get my next cap, and my first cap, then Six Nations cap, was against Italy in 2011.
Very good. And who was coaching Ireland at that stage?
It was Declan Kidney. And Gert Small was the forwards coach.
And what was your relationship with Declan Kidney like? What was your view on his coaching style?
He's pretty good. He's more of a kind of emotional coach. He was very good at man management. A lot of the technical, like he obviously have the way he wanted the team to play, but a lot of technicalities have been delivered by the, like the Gert Small and Les Kiss underneath him. So I personally prefer Schmidt style, but Declan was a very successful coach in his own right. Heineken Cups, Munster, Grand Slam in 2009 with Ireland.
So when you think back on some of the challenges you had to overcome during the rugby career, what were some of the tougher moments for you?
Probably the very start, imposter syndrome. Because I hadn't played any representative rugby, up until becoming a professional. I hadn't played schools, so there was a lot of kind of rugby IP, shall we call, that I had to catch up on. So that that was tough. It's like people calling, I know, different calls that they would have known from schools, and I just didn't know what they were. So that took a bit of catching up on, and then, I moved over to London by myself. So it's kind of sink or swim. I knew this was last chance saloon, and if I didn't make it, that was it. There was no more second chances. So that focused the mind a lot. Like I said, I lost a lot of weight in that first pre-season, but then I did exactly what the S&C coaches were telling me to do. So that's what I did, and it worked. Then there's a few challenges. Coming back. When the first year I came back, I played a lot of games at the start for Leinster, but then I made a mistake in a Heineken Cup game, gave away a penalty that cost us the match, and I was kind of in the doghouse a bit from that point on. So I was going from a time when I was playing every week in the Premiership to being picked on the bench or not at all for the big games, and that was very tough to take. And after about 6 months of this, I was like, I made a mistake. I need to go back to the Premiership. Where at least I'm a rugby player, not a rugby trainer.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to not play for Ireland, I might as well do it. Playing for someone else. Okay, so
Really demoralizing to
yeah,
feel that your
yeah,
face doesn't fit
yeah.
anymore.
It just felt like there wasn't a spot. It was a road I shouldn't have taken. But
Mm.
then I think Checo announced he was going to leave. I said, right, I'll probably hang on, see what this new guy Schmidt is like, and good thing I did.
Brilliant. When you compare, I suppose, Joe Schmidt, who's known for being really into the details and very structured, and everybody knows their role and better deliver on their role, and you compare them to how you see Ireland being coached now with Andy Farrell. How would you compare and contrast?
I think the structure's still there. So Faz's take. I was lucky enough to have Andy for a season, but he was like the defense coach at the time, right? So he's taken what was out there already, the structure, and he's kind of layered probably a bit of demand management on it, the emotional intelligence on top of it, right? Because if you
It
look at
seems like a really happy camp, doesn't it?
yeah, 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 where it's probably sometimes it could be a very tough camp for you if you didn't know your detail, if you got something wrong. It was pretty unforgiving that way, and what that was fine. That's what we needed at the time, and it drove standards, right? And the results under Joe kind of speak for himself. First ever win over the All Blacks, Grand Slam in 2018. But every team has to move and evolve, and sometimes you need a change to bring you onto that next level. And I think he's Faz has come along. He's taken the great underpinnings that kidney broth and then Joe broth, and he's built on top of it. And it's talking to the lads, they seem to be having a lot of fun in there as well as working hard.
So over the course of the career, you won 2 Six Nations, 2 European Cups, a couple of Pro 12s as well in
Yeah.
their Challenge Cup. So remarkable career. But rugby can be unforgiving. Talk to us about the transition from professional sport to life after sport and how you manage that.
Yeah, so my last season, I started getting injured a bit. Our last couple of seasons started getting kind of hamstring injuries that never bothered me before. I think time kind of catches up here. So I was 36, 37, and so I got injured in a game the day Ireland beat New Zealand in Soldier Field. Actually, I was really close to being there because that week before Finlay Bealham had gotten the head injury, so I thought I was going to be travelling over for it. And then he recovered, passed his HIA, damn him, and
Would have been a nice one to
it
be
would
involved
have
in.
been a lovely one to be involved in because I played in a 2013 game that didn't happen where we almost
Yeah.
So I got injured against Zebre of all teams, so did the hamstring, and then I got injured, and then I was coming back, and then in March, because I was pushing I thought I might get another year out of this. I thought I was good enough for another year.
How old were you at that stage?
I was just turned 37. So maybe I was deluding myself a little bit, but I like with Stuart Lancaster in, he was really driving the fitness standards. Probably the fittest I've ever been my last season. Because of the intense training that he put us through. But ultimately, Leo Cullen sat me down and told me that, sorry, there's no contract there for you, right? So that was in March. The contract is up in June. And that tends to focus the mind wonderfully because, I had wife, 2 kids, mortgage, all that, and, rugby pays you well, but it doesn't pay you enough to not have to work again. So I had to go find a job. And the difficulty with that was, well, all my peers were gaining 10 or 15 years experience in the industry. I was, knocking the ball around and hitting people with my shoulders. Yeah. So that's where I met you because
That's right.
yeah. So I a mentor, Michael Ryan, still talk to him, and he recommended you as someone to go talk to. So I don't know if you remember, we sat down in your office over on
Down on Mount Street back in
down
the day.
Mount Street, yeah, and going through the CV, and ultimately that conversation led to. I remember you're the person who put me in. You ever think about sales? And I was like, no. So well, you said, well, you like tech. People know you, could be a good fit, and ultimately that's what happened.
Very good. And the tricky thing for a lot of people retiring or moving from professional sport into the corporate world can be how you kind of, you identify yourself as an athlete or as a professional rugby player. Did you struggle with that around that time? Did you find a lot of your identity or how you valued or how you viewed yourself was tagged to what you did?
It was to a certain extent, but the thing was, I'd been in the real world before. Rugby
You'd
wasn't.
worked in a lab,
I
hadn't
worked
you?
in a lab, yeah.
It's the most boring place in the
Yeah,
world.
yeah. Before I turned pro, I was like working in a food lab, leveraging my degree, testing food for bacteria counts, and I was just like, you ever have that like word yourself? It's like, is this it? Is this
Yeah.
what I'm going to be doing? So
Did you enjoy it or did you find it boring?
fun. Hated it.
Yeah.
Hated it. But I needed to make some money. And that was something I was qualified to do.
So it's kind of different to the people that have come up through schools into the academy system who haven't kind of been in the real world. So you probably had that insight.
Yeah, that's why I hung on as long as I could.
Yeah.
Not back to the real world at all. Yeah, well, transition. Do you know what I found the most difficult bit was just leaving the WhatsApp group.
That is tricky, isn't it?
Yeah. You get removed from the WhatsApp group, and some of the closest friends you have in the world, you're suddenly like they haven't gone away, right? But they're in the rugby bubble, right? They're doing their thing, and they're going to come out of it eventually, and you'll be there waiting to say hello when that happens. But that camaraderie, that fellowship that you have, that was really difficult to leave, because now
you hear that a lot, don't you?
Yeah.
People miss the dressing room, miss the crack, miss those moments.
Yeah, I mean, there's who wrote a very good article on LinkedIn. I'll try and think, but he says professional sports people are junkies, right? But the four horsemen would be like dopamine, serotonin. There's another two ones I can think of in a minute, but like you win a game, serotonin hit. You do a good hard session, dopamine hit. Something goes well on the pitch, you get a hug. It's just all that stops. So often it's an emotional roller coaster. Being a professional rugby player, there's a high of the win, and then there's the low of the loss. But then you go for that one mood all the time, and it takes a bit of time to get used to that.
So and what about the physical part? When you think about it now, do you miss the gym sessions and the preseason, or
not the preseason? No. Yeah. No, it was nice to knock a bit of the flab off after 4 weeks of holidays or whatever it was, but it was very hard going. Sometimes you're doing 2 or 3 gym sessions a day and fitness and running for an intense 6 to 8 week block, and it just takes its toll. But it took me a while to find something else to do. I tried the whole middle-aged man liker thing. The mammal, the cycling. It was fine. It was nice, but it just didn't suit my schedule. Because often the lads would be going out on a Sunday morning. I'd be coaching at that time, so I didn't have time to go out and come back. And it's not a lot of crack doing it by yourself, so I need to find some sort of team element. So about 2 years ago, I was out with Jack McGrath, and his buddy was a brown belt, now a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and we're on for a few beers, and he was wearing the ear off me. A guy called Dara Hulan, wearing their ear off me. Come on, give it a go. You love it. And eventually I said, fine, I'll do it. So I went in, and I did love it. So I've been doing it ever since. Just got my blue belt last June.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So and my professor is a guy called Chris Bowe, and he's actually Tommy Bowe's second cousin. So there's a bit of a...
That's random.
Yeah.
And actually, there's been a few rugby players who have taken up jiu-jitsu over the years. Anyone you want to call out?
Yeah, Matt Stevens. Matt Stevens did it for a while.
Hask as well.
Did Haskell do it?
Yeah,
and there's
he talked about signing for Bellator at one stage, that he was going to have a pro fight, but yeah.
Another prop, Duncan Bell. I used to play for Bath. I think Big Duncan actually won the UK blue belt division there a couple of years ago. So it seems to suit us.
Very good. And in terms of, I suppose, how you structure things now, what have you taken from the sporting career and brought to the business world?
I think resilience. Resilience is a big one. Working in sales now, you get told no an awful lot more than you get told yes. So it's the ability to deal with that setback and just keep going. I think discipline, keep doing the things that you need to do. Keep turning up, and eventually something will happen for you.
And
Yeah.
in terms of other projects, you had the book come out a couple of years ago. Have you got a couple of other projects going like that in terms of some writing or some involvement with coaching, or what are the other things that are keeping you
Not
busy apart from the day job?
not so much in the writing, but yeah, I do a bit of coaching. So I took my son's team from like under 8s up until under 13s, and then they kind of dispersed a bit. So my son went to Bective Rangers, which is a great little club. I do a bit of coaching. I'm kind of scrum gun for hire. I do a bit of work at Wesley College, with their SCT team and a bit with their JCTs. So just, I don't tend to stray too far outside of my core competency, but
Yeah,
I do enjoy. I do like working with the younger kids and seeing light bulbs come on in their head. I do enjoy that.
very good. And you had some thoughts on scrummaging and how the scrum's being refereed at the moment. What were those thoughts?
I just think that there's a lot of perception goes into it. Sometimes if you have a reputation that your side gives away penalties, it tends to self perpetuate. I mean, I remember scrummaging against some of the big South African packs, and they could be as legal as hell, but because it's South Africa or Italy, and they're good scrummagers, they couldn't be giving away penalties. It must be the Irish guys, So, which used to infuriate me quite a bit, And I think we've been a bit unlucky in the last couple of years with some of the decisions that have gone against us for key moments. I mean, I look at that quarter final against New Zealand, and I haven't often seen, an Irish scrum smash a New Zealand scrum like that and not get rewarded for it. So it's been, a bit of a bugbear of mine. But
Yeah. But you're pleased with how the team are going at the moment, no more than the rest of us?
absolutely, I think they're playing a great brand of rugby. They look to be really enjoying it, and like obviously Johnny retired this year, but Crowley stepped into his boots pretty well so far. So we'll see how that evolves and goes.
Yeah, interesting few weeks ahead. So I don't think we'll make any predictions in this conversation, but definitely fingers crossed.
Yeah, well, look, I think it's probably ours to lose. Lads will hate me saying that, but if we play to our best of our ability, teams are going to find it hard to live with us.
Definitely. What's next? Any big things on the horizon for you?
Not really. I'm working in a multinational company called Amdocs now, so working in the telco side. Spend a lot of time out with my main customer, be Vodafone, out in Mountain View and Sandyford. Just usual things, life.
Whiskey.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, I am into my whiskey, and that I don't know if you ever gone to that Whiskey Live thing. That's it's on the RDS. I think is it May or June, but it's always a good way to want to go to. I actually invested in a barrel about 3 or 4 years ago from Dingle Distillery.
Mm-hmm.
So I was myself and a few other lads went in on one. So I don't think I'm gonna make any money on it, but I'm gonna certainly enjoy drinking it in 12 or so years.
Very good. Mike Ross, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks very much, Donal.
If you enjoyed the podcast, please follow us on Instagram at talentmatters_podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube at talentmatters_podcast. And if you want to find Mike, you can find him on Instagram at Mike Ross IRL.
Correct.
See you next time.